Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and also thank you so much for honoring me by inviting me to give this keynote address today. So I specifically want to thank the organizer of this event, the wonderful team of the Nizami Ganjavi Foundation. Thank you for contacting me and offering me this opportunity to be part of today's conference organized in Baku, the homeland of Nizami. Sunshine in Baku, snow and wind and horrible weather in Cambridge. So it's a great joy, as always, to speak about the wonderful Nizami and to give you a brief report on my ongoing research about him. So at the moment, I focus on Nizami's Masnavi, the Haft Peykar. This is probably the most intriguing, the most mysterious of the works composed by our great poet. The work Haft Peykar is very well known, but it's still mysterious. We have several editions of the work. We have lots of translations of the full work or of parts of the work. And also, back in medieval times, the work has been rewritten by later poets. I'm thinking of great artists like Amir Khosrow Dehlavi and also Alisher Navai, who rewrote or was inspired to write a version in Chagatai Turkish. So all this work that has been happening around Haft Peykar shows the fascination that this piece holds. What I work on currently is an all-round literary analysis of the full Masnavi, of its meaning and how all the different pieces work together, creating a complete, meaningful, but truly amazing narrative. And I will only be touching on a tiny part today because I want to really focus on the theme multiculturalism, or as Mr. Gorbanov just said, diversity within the work, and specifically within the central character of Nizami's Haft Peykar. And indeed, any analysis of the meaning of Haft Peykar necessarily depends on the findings of an analysis of the central literary character, the Sasanian ruler, Bahram Gur, who rules for 18 years from 421 to 439 AD over the Sasanian Empire. Haft Peykar is a very complicated work, and it's my privilege to study it. But until now, the central character, Bahram, has not been fully analyzed, fully identified as a literary character. We have not analyzed, for example, what sort of character of person Nizami is creating. Can we say that Bahram Gur is a moral person? Can we say that he's a good prince and that later he becomes an exemplary king? So this is a thesis that is often proposed, but I think the character is too complex to simply write him down as a good or a bad character. It's also the work itself is very complex and too complex to simplify it as an allegory of spiritual or moral, ethical growth. What about, as a literary analysis continues, what about the character of Bahram's inner thoughts? Can we hear them in Haft Peykar, or are we only receiving the descriptions and the narrator's opinion of what Bahram is thinking? What about Bahram as a son, as a lover, as a husband, as a father? All these elements are necessary to give us a good idea of what Bahram is as a character. But curiously enough, we only hear details about his life, at the very end of the story, like hearing that he has a son, that is never mentioned in the course of the Haft Peykar. It's only mentioned in passing when Bahram's mother comes to the cave in which he has disappeared, admits that her son is gone forever, that Mother Earth has taken him back, and so we are told the son of Bahram will climb on the throne. So the persona of Bahram Gur remains a very mysterious character at the center, although he's holding the center place of in the story. Haft Peykar itself is often described as a romance, but we need to wonder whether the character of Bahram really fits into what we know about the literary genre of romance. So all this is just to put my finger on the fact that scholarship, to the best of my knowledge, has not yet gone very far in the analysis of the work. Probably we are too hurried to explain what we think Haft Peykar is about and how we can describe the central character. So I'm trying to work on a close analysis of the character. What I can say is that it's absolutely incredible how rich Nizami's work is and how wonderfully it responds to a present-day literary analysis. So it's really showing us that the work, which was written so many centuries ago, is absolutely ready to answer the present-day questions that we put to literature. Now, moving to the specific theme of our conference today, yes, multiculturalism, diversity, hybridity is very evident in the Haft Peykar, and I can even say that it really lies at the very core of the work and of the personality of the central character, Bahram Gur. Nizami Ganjavi has really shown incredible engagement in that work with different cultures. It's evident both in the way that the poet is claiming the research to prepare for writing Haft Peykar, and it also is evident in the choice that the poet and his patron have made of this particular historical character. So usually we accept that the individuality of the author's imagination is focused around the literary tradition in which he lives and in the current and the past history of the land in which he lives. But we can also add to this that the influence of the wishes, of the desires of the patron, who are putting money on the table and saying, Nizami, I want you to write this sort of work, that the will of the patron is also very important in shaping a work. And it's probably a dialogue, 50-50 importance, a dialogue between the author and his patron. So we must imagine that Nizami starts writing Haft Peykar in the last decade of the 12th century in answer to the wishes of his patron Ala Eddin Kirp Arslan, his patron who is asking him to write this particular Masnavi. And so we can think what could have been the reasons for Nizami and for his patron to select this particular Bahram Gur, Sasanian emperor, as the core around which they compose this poem. And I think that the poem itself is giving us part of the answer to this question, because both the poet and his patron are living in a region which we can best define as a cultural, economic, and religious contact zone, with no set political or cultural frontiers, with a place, a point where several cultural strands touch and mix. Nizami is educated and he's basking in an ambiance of cultural hybridity. And this would have carried inherent tensions, but also it's bringing enriching diversity. So the 12th century scene in the Eastern Islamic territory is one of fractured power within the loosely knit huge Seljuk Empire. Azerbaijan, where Nizami seems to have lived most of his life, is really at cultural crossroads along trade routes stretching endlessly east and west. And Nizami makes the most of his home region's cultural openness when he is boasting. He's really very proud to say that his sources come from all sorts of horizons. In the introduction to Haft Peykar, he says, I have been reading books that were concealed, that were forgotten, that were scattered throughout the world's broad fields. I have been influenced by speech from Persia, speech from Arabic. I have been reading works written by Bukhari and Tabari, and I've also gathered pearls from many other texts, all scattered around. And all these hidden pearls, I have been putting them within my work, my manuscript. So the poet is really presenting himself as innovative in cultural hybridity. And this cultural hybridity is what is shaping his creation. As a researcher, we need to say, to question, do we find evidence that Nizami indeed has used the texts that he mentions? And yes, of course, Nizami is not lying. He is telling the truth. He is announcing that he is using Persian and Arabic elements. And to that, of course, we must also add his Turkish background of the region. Why should he make such a claim? What is the rhetorical function of this claim to hybridity? He proclaims reliance on sources, so he is announcing authenticity. He's not saying that he has invented everything, but this authenticity comes with a desire for multilingual, multicultural contents, showing his wish to mediate between foreign intellectual culture and native traditions. Haft Peykar has its origins in what was presented and may actually really have been a desire for an act of cultural hybridization. So when he explains that Haft Peykar is a complex of interrelated sources, Nizami crosses through the boundaries between the writing techniques, but also the contents of the work itself, because hybridity, multi-ethnicity is woven within the very core of the character of Bahram Gur. It's this hybridity, this diversity that is putting a stamp on the education, on the love life, and on the rule of the central hero of Bahram Gur. It's also there in the contents, in the narrative contents, because the 7 stories that are told to Bahram Gur, famously told to Bahram Gur in the Haft Peykar, they are told, each of the stories are told by a princess that comes from a different region of the world. So mixed languages, mixed backgrounds, mixed ideas, multi-ethnicity. And zooming into the persona of Bahram Gur, we can see that Nizami presents him as having 2 fathers. There is his natural genitor, the Sasanian emperor, Yazdegir II, but there is also his real father who brings him up in Arabia, the Arab vassal of the emperor. Bahram learns the Arabic way of life, especially hunting and bravery. but he has two fathers, the biological ruler and the actual Arabian, real father, as I said. So the narrative consequences of this double hybrid parentage are found in the episode where the grandees of Iran refuse to welcome Bahram Gur as the heir to the Iranian throne. And the debate around the heredity relates to this incredibly interesting debate of nurture versus nature. We see that Nizami also gives Bahram, I'll get back to the throne question in a minute, but we see that Bahram also is given an impressive number of mother figures in the story. I can count 5 of them, but these mothers play only a background role in the story. But the baby Bahram receives 2 wet nurses. His real mother appears only once at the very end of the story, the queen, the Persian queen. She is heartbroken that Bahram has disappeared without a farewell, but she recognizes that his other cruel mother, Earth, has taken back the young Bahram. And Bahram also has, as a mother figure, the female Gur, who is at the beginning of the story luring him into the cavern where the dragon resides. Another element of diversity of multi-ethnicity is the fact that Bahram is presented as multilingual. He can enjoy easily poetry in Persian and in Arabic, but he's also mentioned as understanding the 7 multicultural brides who are telling him tales. And Nizami even say, and I quote, the Persian, the Greek, the Arab speech, the Magian master taught him that. So it's also a question of showing this character in the story as truly multilingual. So in the time that is left me, I want to look at the detail of the particular episode when Bahram is inheriting the throne of Iran. So when the Yazdegerd, the Sasanian emperor, dies, the nobles, the grandees of Iran, of the Sasanian nobility, use both the nurture versus nature arguments to demonstrate that Bahram is not fit to rule over Persia. Yes, he is of the blood of the royal family. He is the son of the deceased emperor, but because the emperor was so cruel and even, probably mad, they don't want to have the son of this bloodline to come to the throne of Iran. And yes, Bahram was educated in Arabia, so he is not recognized as being able to rule over Iran, over the sophisticated reality of the Iranian Empire. So it seems that for the grandees of Iran, this multi-ethnicity and multiculturalism that is represented in the person of the young Prince Bahram, it's this very multi-ethnicity that is the reason why he should not be inheriting the throne. So the grandees, I can quote what Nizami says, the grandees are saying, we will not consider him as the future ruler of Iran because he has been reared, he has been brought up in the deserts of the Arabs. He's not prepared to rule over Persia. He would give the Arabs power and wealth, and the Persian-born people would suffer under him. So yes, the grandees of the Sasanian empire are represented here as expressing a violently negative impression of the Arabic identity. There is also a rejection of a young prince who is ethnically different, culturally different. But Nizami has the young Bahram demonstrate that it's just his Arabic hunting education, which will allow him the courage to face the two lions and to win the crown. Because the grandees of Iran have appointed a vague cousin to the throne of Persia. But Bahram, together with his Arab adopted father and brother and their army, enter into Iranian territory, claiming the throne and the crown. And after much discussion, the nobles agree that the crown of Iran will belong to the man who will be able, either Bahram or his cousin, who is has been declared king, the man who will be able to seize the crown of Iran from between two lions. And it will be Bahram who will approach bravely the two ferocious lions, and he shouts at them so terribly that first of all the two lions are afraid and they stand back. Bahram uses that moment to seize the crown, so already he is the real ruler of Iran, and then the two lions will attack him and he will kill them and put on the crown and sit on the throne. So I think that with this example, Nizami argues positively for Bahram's multiculturalism. The rough education in Arabia might not have given him the sophistication that was expected for the Iranian court, but it has given him the courage and the physical ability to engage with the lions and to win the crown. Of course, there's a lot more to be said about Nizami's evident desire to engage with multiculturalism, especially in the Haft Peykar, but unfortunately, I have to stop here. So thank you very much for your attention and for giving me the opportunity to present this ongoing research on Haft Peykar.